Can you see me?
I can. How's everyone doing?
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, Dean.
Good morning, Jenny.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi.
Hi, Sandra.
Hello.
Whose crazy idea was it to do it at 8 a.m.?
It's 10 o'clock here. I don't know.
Nice
Where?
for
What's that?
Where are you at?
In Chicago.
Oh, you come home today?
I do. I leave in an hour and a half.
Well, hopefully you have better travel drama than I did last night.
you. Uh-oh.
Eh. Okay, well, I think we'll get started. I don't know if I know Tina was planning on being on the call, but I don't know what's happened. So we'll go ahead and at least get started. So this is round 2 of Monroe's personalized learning journey, and we're just looking at exploring some topics today that really center around student work and what they're doing while other kids are doing something different maybe. So we have a couple of questions to just kind of explore and to look to see what that classroom management looks like in a personalized learning model versus that traditional model. So we'll go ahead and get started with Dean. And Dean, the first question is, how do you manage 30 plus students when they're potentially doing something different all at the same time?
Good question. I started doing this a little bit last year with math. That there was really potentially 30 kids doing something different already at that time. I had pockets of kids doing individual work, some kids doing partner work, and then I had a group with me, like a small group. It was, in some ways it was, I already had built-in routines for that. That was a big help for me. I had some incentives involved as well. But really, I just kind of laid it out there and said, okay, this is what you're going to do. And then when I had the moment to check on them, like if my small group was at a point where they could do something on their own, I could also walk around and check on the individuals or check on the partner groups. So, I don't have it all figured out, but it worked for me in terms when we did math last year. So that's one idea I've kind of used.
Great, thank you. I know it's kind of trying to figure it out sometimes is the biggest challenge, not necessarily what the students are doing, but how to figure out a process or a routine, and I think that's really important, especially when starting out, is trying to implement that routine, and if it doesn't work, being able to pivot and move to a different direction on how to think about it in a different way. So, Sandra, I'm going to ask you the same question. So, what would it look like to manage 30 students in a classroom where they're all doing something potentially different?
Well, just like Dean stated, with routines at the beginning, then after that having deadlines, and what I did, I gave like weekly reports. So then I was monitoring those students that had missed assignments. So then they're kind of being like coach or being kind of looked at more closely to see where they were at certain points of the assignments. So that kind of helped with having a closer monitor with those students that weren't able to complete their assignments on time. I'm still kind of researching and learning, what can I do for this school year, maybe having centers. I'm thinking maybe of having more, a parent volunteer or a tutor that could walk around, maybe having an adult just being present in the classroom as, I'm doing coaching. So just looking at what worked for me last year and looking at new things to work on.
Good. I know, and just for those of you that don't know, Sandra teaches sixth grade, so for her to think about that center model, I think is probably vastly different than a lot of sixth grade teachers out there. But I think it's a really, it really shows that personalized learning is definitely different than that traditional model and maybe the things that we've been used to previously. I do like the fact that you're doing that coaching model where you're working closely with those students and also giving them deadlines on when items are due. I think that's really important, especially when trying to manage 30 different paths along their learning journey. So, Tina, welcome. So we've been talking about how to manage 30 students when they're all kind of doing different things. So what do you have to comment on that?
Well, I probably have to say this is one of the most difficult or the most challenging because there are so many. They're at different levels, or not levels, but at different stages during the process. What I've been working on the most with them is, giving them those deadlines of knowing when they need to have it done, but also guiding them through where should you be at this point, where are you at, what can we do to catch you up to where we should be, and allowing them to go, okay, this is where I need to be, this is where I need to get, and next year I'm really going to work on them with the backwards planning of, here, this is my goal, what do I need to do each day. And I didn't do that last year just because it was really new, but this year that's my goal for them, is to say, okay, if this is when it's due, what do I need to accomplish each day or each week for me to get to that deadline. So I think that's where I'm at right now. Again, last year it was a little bit harder to do that because I was still learning the process of getting them there. So I will, again, work on that this summer to figure out what will be beneficial for them this coming year.
Thank you. I know it really is tough, I think, sometimes for educators to start thinking about moving to this without really knowing what it should look like, and knowing that it's going to be a process and there's going to be some things that work really well and then some things that you need to kind of try, and if it doesn't work, move on to something else. So we're going to take that administrator kind of viewpoint when maybe that administrator walks into a classroom and sees 30 students doing all different things, and we're going to put a little bit of a twist on it. So what might that look, let's say, on a teacher evaluation, when traditionally we've had a formal lesson and what the administrator comes in and does that evaluation. How might that look within this personalized learning model when we have students doing a lot of different things, and just from that administrator viewpoint? So Jenny, what would that maybe look like in your eyes?
That would be exciting for me, and I know we did that in Sandra's class this year, actually, and we did it in a couple others during an evaluation, and that's when the model with the pre-conference is really ideal and key, because we can have that conversation ahead of time about what are the expectations on the teacher's point of view of how the system is going to run, and what is the lesson I'm observing. When a teacher is well planned and organized, it brings everyone to life during that observation. And typically we actually have better engagement in something like that than a traditional direct instruction model lesson. So I would say anybody considering doing it, go for it, because it really shows the high level of skill that the teacher has and has embraced. It also allows for every student to capitalize on the instructional time that they're involved in. So for example, the best models include being able to go into a classroom and ask a student what their goal for the day is, and every single student knowing exactly what it is that they're supposed to be focused on and how the teacher's instruction couples with that. I really appreciate, Tina's perspective of the backwards planning. We usually use that terminology when we're talking about our own planning as the teacher, but I love her connection with the student planning, because that's the #1 changer in the game for us at Monroe. Is we wanted students to lead their own learning, and Tina really described that well on what will be the game changer for our students. And I love seeing things like that in classroom observations. It really shows the effectiveness of instruction, the personalization for students, the organization of the teacher, and everyone working toward a goal that's pretty powerful.
That's great, thank you. And just, it's nice to always get that administrator's viewpoint on what it could potentially look like, or what they're hoping that it's going to look like. So I think that's really great insight. Thank you. So the next thing we're going to do is go to our next question, which is, how do you know if students are doing what they say they're doing? I think a big perception out there is if students are working independently without a lot of checking in, that they're probably not on task, is a term that I've heard a lot before, or that they're playing around. So I just want our teachers to kind of address that question, and we'll start with Sandra. Sandra, what could you say to that question?
Well, there's opportunities to kind of peek in their work. If, let's say they're doing some writing, or on their Google Docs share, so they share their work with me, so I could just pop in and see what they're working on. I could send them a message and see how they respond. And there's been a time where I kind of waited for that student. I see they're kind of looking around. Finally, I had to call them over, and I think if they know that there's random checks, and then just kind of getting to know your student, and just, you might catch them here and there where they might be off task, so you have to just talk to them and remind them of the importance, what they should be working on. And I think if they know that, somebody is on keeping, it's on them, or on task, or is interested in their work, then for the most part they turn around and go back and they're on task. So I don't really see it a big issue. I mean, you will run into some, but it's not like where they're having no assignments, because there's no way as a teacher that, with progress reports, weekly assignments, you can't have that student fall behind that far.
Good. So I think you're really talking about knowing each individual student and their potential roadblocks, and definitely their successes, and trying to remind them about those along their learning path. So I think that's really great. Tina, same question to you, and then maybe also think about, is there a program that you've used that hopefully is free, but could be potentially helpful in just verifying what students are doing?
Well, like Sandra was saying with the Google Docs, I know having that shared document, the kids really, they go, oh, she's on here, she's watching what we're doing, so they know that they need to be working on it. But we also, for the math, I started using Google Forms, and so after they were done with each assignment, or each part of the assignment, they would tell me what it is they did, how they did on that assignment. And so it was just a very quick, on our haiku page, they could go in there and say, okay, I finished the quiz, this is what I got on it, and then they could move on. And this was a really great way for me to hold them accountable of, hey, wait a minute, you didn't do anything during this time? Oh, I forgot to do this. I said, no, you need to be doing that. And I know during one of our meetings, the kids were doing math time during that time, and so I was able to go in during the meeting and kind of just see, hey, who's been doing what, where are they at? And it was a very quick way for me to look at, with me not even being in the classroom, of how they're doing, and be able to monitor that. Again, there's days when I'm not there for different reasons, and that is a very quick and easy way to see what's going on in my classroom at that time. I know we've also used Today's Meet to kind of monitor where they're at, what they're doing. that's been one that the kids seem to enjoy as well. To hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to be doing next, and they enjoy that, and it's a quick, easy way for you to monitor, hey, where are you? Or you can say, hey, I haven't seen you on in a while. What are you working on? And they can, give you that, oh, here, this is what I'm doing. So the Google Forms has worked probably the best. When I was down computers, that was the biggest struggle, is they didn't have the capability to do it because they couldn't do it on their Kindles. But they really have loved to go in there. Again, it takes them not even a minute to fill it out, and here, this is what I did, this is how I did, and it's a quick, easy monitoring. I know with math, even if they weren't doing the Google form, when it came to their test time and they didn't do very well on the test, it was like, well, how did you do on this? Oh, well, I didn't do this, or oh, I did. So that is an easy way for them to monitor. If they're getting 5s or 100% on all this stuff, or even 90s, they should be doing well on their math test, and they can really see. I had a student this year who struggled with completing all parts of the assignment, and it really showed on his math test, and I said, you have to go back and we have to do each step of it. And when we went back and did that and he retook the test, he did 10 times better. So that Google form, again, has really helped to manage what they're doing in a timely manner. So
good. Thank you. I think really the biggest thing that I'm hearing from that is students are accountable for their work, and whatever method you use to kind of check in on them and see what that's like is definitely up to each teacher, but it really comes down to that student accountability and what they're doing to better their own learning path along the way. So Dean, I'm going to ask you, what strategies are used to ensure that students complete work in a timely manner?
Yeah, another good question, especially as I tried some personalized learning last year, and looking to next year. It was that timely matter, getting things done. If you kind of say go, and not all of them finishing, that was a big challenge. So one of the things I have tried, and it worked well last year, is we had a project that the kids were working on, mostly in groups of 2 to 3, some individual. And I was weekly just meeting with each group or each individual and saying, okay, what do you have? Show me. And, because I would say it's due by a certain amount of time. So I was kind of keeping them on task and keeping them accountable of what they've done so far. And that really, okay, what do you have? Show me, show me, show me. Who's going to do this? Who's going to do this? And they were able to tell me what was going on, and getting their feedback, and them actually realizing, oh my gosh, we need to do this as well. And then I'd point out, okay, when is this due? And they could tell me when it was due. So I think that accountability on their own end, as well as an instructor meeting with them weekly or periodically, that definitely keeps them accountable as well, to hopefully get things done on time. And also, you put time limits on the different websites, like our math. It's I have a certain amount of time to do it. Even on Haiku, when they had to put in the Dropbox for a writing assignment, there was a due date on it. So there was always cues for them to see, oh, this is due now, this is due then. And even on my board, I would actually put down, okay, this is where you should be today, this is what's late. So they had a lot of visual cues as well. So they know what was going on, so there's no surprises for them. So those are a couple of things that I've tried.
Great. I really like the idea of posting it on the board, or having the students have their own calendar, or being posted in a lot of variety of ways. That way students who maybe don't respond real well to managing it themselves have a lot of support in moving forward when knowing when things are due, or where they should be along that path. So Sandra, same question to you. Is there a strategy that you've used last year or plan to use this next year for really managing student work to be completed?
Yeah, just very similar to what Dean was saying about having like we would call it the minimums for the day. I call them minimums so they can move on and do more than that. But if they wanted to be on task, they had listed what was the minimums for the day. Those students that did struggle with meeting deadlines, I did have them like manually put it on their planner because they would be like, I thought I had already done it. So I helped them out with writing it down on their planner and then just checking off as they're completing their assignments. I'm thinking of next year having like a digital class calendar maybe on the Haiku website, so that way there's another visual there for them. For them to also, what I'm thinking for next year is having like a student board, digital board, where they're posting their assignments on there. So then there's a visual there also for like as a class, they can see. Maybe that might be incentive or pressure if they see other students completing assignments, and then as they see other students posting their work, then they might be more motivated to be able to get it completed on time as well. So things that I've used and things that I think I'm going to try for next year as well.
That's good. I really like the idea of that planner, and I know that's something that Jenny has had an expectation of with students kind of taking that ownership of their own learning and planning, is that planner. So this question's a little bit different, but along the same lines. So Jenny, if you think about your expectation of students using their student planner, what else could be an expectation as we move to a more digital or paperless type environment within the classroom? How would you envision that looking in a classroom, especially centered around personalized learning and student ownership of their own learning?
Well, our teams touched on quite a few ideas pretty well. The planner was the basis for, again, back to the student accountability, and we definitely are working towards doing that digitally. Haiku is one option for us. A key factor in that process for me, though, is to make sure that we have a way that parents can check on that as well. So if we move away from a paper planner, we have to be able to make sure that whatever we do use, students have access all the time, students know how to use it, and parents have access to it as well. Again, all of this centers around the students leading the learning. And when students know how to backwards plan, as Tina talked about, and have a way to check in and be accountable with the teacher, as Dean talked about, and really understand their strengths and weaknesses, like Sandra talked about, we can capitalize on every process. But unless we know what that organization is going to look like first, we really can't put it into students' hands and make an expectation. Teachers have quite a few varieties of strategies in their classrooms, and what's important for me is that it's effective. So one of the lessons that we've learned in this process of developing our own understanding is to not try to control every decision, every process, every system, but let teachers create that on their own. Because when the teacher owns it and is excited about it, it's more likely it's going to be more effective with students. But at a very minimum, as you said, Christian, the student planners, we really are looking for doing something digital, but again, it has to have that factor of access for everyone.
Great, thank you. And again, it's nice to be able to think about what students are doing in their own way, what works for them, and how they can keep that keep track of that along their learning path. So this is our last question. We're almost done with our second installment of our Monroe Personalized Learning Journey. So the question that we're going to end on for each of you is, what keeps you up at night when you're thinking about personalized learning and student independence? So we're going to start with Tina and kind of see what's in her head along that line.
Oh, what's not in my head? I know. I think the biggest struggle is just getting the kids passionate about what they're doing and wanting them to do it. And that I think is the biggest. Sorry, no, not right. Go. Um, sorry, 3 kids staring at me. The biggest struggle, I guess, is just the getting them passionate about it and wanting to go past that minimum of here's what you need to do, and letting them go with it, and knowing that it's okay to fail at that point, because that's what they're going to learn from. And so I think that's getting the kids, they're so used to, oh, I can't do it, and really getting them motivated to, yes, you can, and it's okay if you don't get it the first time around, and letting them go for it, and just, again, learning on their own as well. So that keeps me up, because I want to get it in their head that they're 10 times they can do this on their own, and sometimes they want you to hold their hand along the whole way, and I want them to grow without me, and so that's my struggle, is getting it in their head that they can do it. So
oh, that's great. Thank you. And that is that's a, I don't want to say it's a great thing to be concerned about, but it really is finding that way to motivate students that we probably haven't really tapped into in such a unique way. So I think that's really something to think about, and thank you for sharing. So, Dean, same question for you. What keeps you up at night when thinking about student independence along that personalized learning journey?
Actually, 2 parts. One is the physical environment of the classroom. I really want to explore how to use the classroom in a different way than I have for the last 17 or 16 years, and I want to be able to have that more freedom. But the confines of the room and how to structure it, or allow the kids to move around, that I've been thinking about that a lot, actually, and I've seen different models online and through videos, and they sound great and they look great. I'm just trying to figure out how to do it, because I want those kids to have that opportunity to, have individual time or group time or one-on-one time or small group time with me. And so the structure of the classroom and how that all works, that's one thing that's on my mind. The other part is reading. I'm getting incoming 4th graders, and they're not all competent readers. And how do I, walk that fine line of letting them go and fail and learn on their own, but at the same time, that controlling side of me as a teacher says, okay, I'm gonna, power with you and struggle with you, and let's do it together. I want to allow them to have that personalized learning, but still be there, because some of them are still honestly learning how to read instead of to learn. A bulk of them are reading to learn, but still they need to learn how to read, at least comprehend, and how to answer those questions and go deeper. And so those 2 things have been on my mind all the summer and even before the summer. How's that going to look in my classroom?
No, I think that's really good, and knowing that fine line like you were talking about, and I think that really personalized learning actually opens itself up to being able to meet each of those individual student needs, and knowing your students, and saying, you know what, instead of reading this independently, it's going to be a real scaffolded read, maybe within a small group with the teacher or in a different type of environment. So thank you, Dean. That was really good. Sandra, same question for you. What keeps you up at night in regards to personalized learning and student independence?
During the school year, it's always about results, our students achieving mastery, and so that keeps me out at night. If they're not, achieving mastery, it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? So I'm always thinking of ways for that student. They know in my classroom we're constantly making changes for the better. So if something didn't work, or we're still working on something, then we might have to tweak it a little bit so we can achieve, higher results. So I'm always thinking of different ways to help my students. So if I don't get the, mastery results, I'm always thinking about them. What else can I do for them to achieve these results? So,
Yeah, no, that's probably one of the biggest things to think about, and it's actually the basis for our next Google Hangout that we have about Monroe's personalized learning journey is that competency-based assessment and verification of mastery of those standards or those skills that we're putting forward. So we're going to end our Google Hangout with that administrative perspective. What keeps you up at night, Jenny, when thinking about personalized learning and that student independence or that teacher independence as well?
Well, before I answer, I would actually like to ask you the question, Christian. What keeps you up at night in regards to this? We haven't heard what goes on in that mind much today.
Well, it's very nice of you to flip the script on me like that. But so the thing that I really think about with personalized learning is how do we meet the needs of every single student when we have 30 plus different learning paths along that way, and how do we keep in mind student interest, their own path, but with Common Core state standards as our foundation or as our stopping points along the way of their path. So how do I balance students achieving or being have mastered those Common Core state standards, yet still keeping interest and keeping them interested in learning along that way. So that's what keeps me up at night, along with about 17,000 other things, but specifically within personalized learning and that student independence.
Thank you. See, I knew there was lots of good stuff in there. We just needed you to share. As you can see from all the team's response, you guys didn't really need my perspective because you covered everything so well. But, you know, because we're talking specifically about what keeps us up at night, one thing that I do worry about as the instructional leader is the burnout of my team and the burnout of my teachers. And you can tell from all of their answers, they've already spent part of their summer, which has just begun, researching. And that's what we've done for the last year and a half is we have been out there trying to find information and create ideas, create lessons, set up systems, and help one another move towards this journey. And I worry, you know, as their colleague and cheerleader that they're going to burn out. And so that's a big one for me. And I think that was one of our biggest goals in moving forward with what we're doing next is we really do need to partner with some experts and partners with some of our colleagues so that we don't feel like we're out there alone, and so that my teachers don't feel like that they're blazing a trail by themselves and then get burned out. One of the other things you touched on as well, Christian, was in regards to standards. When we're moving towards this, and especially when we're kind of in the experimental stage, I worry when we lose sight of the standards and that what we are asking students to do is at the appropriate level, knowing that in a personalized learning environment, every student's level might be different. And we might need some reteaching or remediation. However, our expectation always needs to be at grade level. And that when we seek to moving them on and pushing them toward mastery, that we know where they're headed in the standards and what the expectation is in the future. Because if we can have that in mind, we'll make sure that all of that time that students spend working and learning is productive. One of the other, I'm getting an echo. Do you guys know? I'm not sure. Oh, sorry. The other issue that I that I worry about, especially this last year, not having a standardized test, is in regards to failure. That I want to make sure that along the way that we truly are checking in and we have some benchmarks to determine if our strategies are working and are we being effective with students and are we using the best measures to determine student success. Because as we move forward, as the team talked about, we're not looking at just competency, we're looking at mastery. But what we don't want when students are determining their path and pace is we don't want a strong math student only working on math. We want students to balance in their learning and really start attacking their weaknesses, and that takes a great guide. But if we don't focus on competency in weak areas, then moving toward mastery in all areas, I think we'll lose sight of what our focus should be every day in the classroom.
Great, thank you. And I just want to thank everyone for everything that they've shared today and taking time out of their summer. Like Jenny was talking about, we're a couple weeks in, and I think most of us probably want to get outside. I know it's early on the West Coast, but it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day there. I'm going to try to get to the airport and get my plane off the ground. It's supposed to be foggy again today. It's been foggy for the last 2 days in Chicago, which is apparently very rare here. So I again want to thank each of you, and we'll go ahead and have another Google Hangout in a couple of weeks and really think about and talk about what the difference between competency and mastery, because I think there's a big difference. And just as we leave, I want you to kind of all think about, knowing that a student's learning path is determined not only by themselves but by the teacher. And so how can we join those two together to make sure that it's a successful path and journey for each of the students in our classrooms, as well as students outside our classrooms that we might be influencing on a different level and path. So again, thank you so much, and I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. All right, bye guys.
Good job, team.